All right. So, like we said, the session today we're looking at being agile, continuous delivery of value. What does it really mean? And from that title, we've given a glimpse to it. To say, if you say you're being agile, it means you're delivering value continuously. So, we need to be able to have some conversations around that. What does it mean to be agile? What exactly is value, and how can you ensure that your business is always delivering value? So, with me today we have Tobe Nneji, who would briefly introduce herself again, and then we start. Okay.
Okay. All right. So, hi everyone. My name is Tobe Nneji. I am currently an engagement manager with Amazon Web Services, where I partner with our clients to help them figure out the best way to adopt AWS services towards creating value and solutions for themselves. And with that, we help our clients become more agile towards the attainment of value. Over my career, I've been involved in different agile roles. I have been an analyst, been on the development team, I've been a product owner, I've been an agile coach, and all of that experience has worked together to put me in this position where I now sort of consult with AWS clients and help them along their agile transformation journey towards the continuous attainment of value. So thank you for having me again.
All right, welcome. And like I said before, one of the reasons why Tobe was like the very right person to have this session with is because of the different people I interact with within the Agile community, Agile coaches, Scrum Masters, and the like. I've seen something that Tobe tries to see how we can bring all these principles and practices to our personal life. And like I said, I had the boss one time who is still a mentor who normally says that people can't be excellent at their job if they are not excellent in their everyday life. So, so what Tobe also tries to teach is that beyond trying to be agile as an organization, how can we start by being agile as individuals? And then if every individual in the organization is agile in their way of thinking, in their approach to solving problems, then it pretty much scales up across the organization. Yeah, and it's popularly said as well too that the organization is as agile as the least agile unit in the place. And in this context, you might be saying that it's even as agile as the least agile person in your organization. So don't let me start saying the answers. Tobe is the one that holds them in hands. So Tobe, let's start by explaining to our audience what exactly it means to be agile.
Right. So agile is a mindset. It's really that mindset that shapes the way that you solve problems. So you're not so focused on the big picture that you don't move forward in the short term. So it is that mindset that helps you continuously make short-term decisions that come together towards giving you your long-term value. And every short-term decision and every value attained from your short-term decision is in and of itself valuable, right? So even like separate from the big picture, that small decision and that small value that you get is already good. And you can look at it and say, okay, this is perfect, this is good, this is exactly what I want. And then you can incrementally build on that to move on to the next level. As an individual with adopting the agile mindset, it sort of takes away from the specific what of whatever it is you're trying to do to the specific value that whatever it is you're trying to do is going to bring to you as a person. Now, translating that over to the enterprise and the company perspective, as a company, when you're going agile, what you're then thinking about is how best to continuously deliver value to your customers. And so you switch your perspective for value delivery from profit and from gizmos and everything else to what your customer actually wants. You need to think like your customer, you need to be in the minds of your customer, and you have to have a completely outcome-based perspective from your customer's point of view towards the way that you ideate and deliver your products and your services.
Oh, wow, interesting. So we hope that as we go on in the conversation, you break that down a bit further with some instances as well too, because I mean, it's a whole body of knowledge in its own self. Like when some software developers came together and said, let's find a better way to do projects. And they led the whole agile thing, and it's gradually gone beyond just managing software projects to how agile management across the organization. It's not
Right.
like we said. It's not some. We're not going to say you learn everything about it in a 1-hour call. We're only just going to help you with some pointers that might be able to help. And we also open to getting questions at the end of it. So you can ask questions around, maybe you're looking at certifications or things. You can ask some of those questions as well too at the end. So, and we could point you to how you can even read more and learn more and understand all this. And not just learning them, but how you can start practicing them today, right? That's what it
Absolutely,
means
yeah.
to even be agile to start with. Yeah, so a good one. You said something that's very key from your question there, that being agile is shifting people's attention from the what to the why, like moving away from activity to focusing on the value that you are really trying to deliver. So will you please explain a bit, what does the word value mean?
So value refers to the usefulness of a thing. For instance, if I was a teacher, right, and I'm marking my students' sheets, typically a teacher would use a red pen, right? So in that moment, if I'm a teacher and I have a black pen and a blue pen, they're not of any value to me, because they're pens, they're useful, but they're not of value to my specific purpose. What I need at that time is a red pen. So until I have a red pen, I have not achieved the value that I could possibly get from a pen. So if a person was trying to create a pen for me, right, and they don't get all the way down to that nitty gritty where the ink is red, they haven't given me value. Now, if a person decides to give me something that is not exactly a pen, but it is red and I can use it to make marks on the sheet, I have still achieved my value, but it's not exactly a pen, right? So that's kind of like the conversation about the what and the why. Now, if you're so focused on creating a pen, you might miss the mark. But if you're focused on creating something that I can use to mark my sheets in red, you can create anything and it would still give me the value, right? Does that give a good differentiation for what it is? Yeah. So that's kind of like a good example for how you could think about value in terms of the why versus the what.
Yeah, and I really love the example there with the fact that if you're making pens for teachers, because they need the red pens, if you've not given them a red pen, no matter how many other colors you give them, you've not really provided any value, which is something that a lot of organizations think sometimes, oh, we're churning out products. But thinking about the final customer that is using this product, are they getting any value from it? And one keyword I just want to pick out from what you just said there is being customer centric. Because
Absolutely.
you talk about thinking about what the teacher needs, the color that the teacher needs. So as a business, when you're thinking about value, as Tobe has explained here, you need to be thinking about the final users. What is of value to them? I love that word so much, usefulness. How is this useful to this person? Yeah. So, and that being said, it means as an organization, you need to try as much as possible to understand who your customers are. Because if you don't understand them, you want to say something to that, Tobe?
Well, yes, because sometimes people, I think that some things that especially entrepreneurs, small business owners tend to suffer is they don't necessarily know who I call the customer John. They don't know who their John is, right? I used to work on radio a few years ago, and something that I used to say to people that worked with me is, you need to imagine that you are speaking to John, and think about where John's head is at that point in time. How is John feeling? What has John eaten for breakfast? What music does John like? What kind of news does he care about? What colors does he wear? Like, where does he work? You need to be that specific about the mindset, the emotions, the psychology of your customer, so that you can think like them. And sometimes it's not something you're able to just sit down on your end and figure out. You actually do need to go out and talk to these customers to know where their heads are, right? So sometimes, especially with small businesses, it's easy to miss that mark, but that's where you then come in with having customer engagement agents and people who can help you get to know your customers and ask the right questions so that you know exactly what your customer needs from you as a service or product provider.
Yeah, thank you for that. So please, you've heard it. Whatever the size that your business is, try to find ways to engage with your customers. If you don't have all the time, engage people who can do that for you. There are things, feels like user experience research, where they go out and just listen to customers. You have engagement consultants who go out there to just help you speak to your customers. So I'm going to say a quick story there around that, then we move on to the next question, which is that I once worked with this consultant who was sharing a very lovely story. I love that story so much because you wouldn't have expected the way the story turned. So they were working with a restaurant and they needed to figure out what is drawing their customers to come to them. What was the major value add that makes them get their customers so that they can hone in on it and do better in that area. So of course, let me pause, and if you want to guess, what do you think was the major value that the restaurant was getting? If you've heard me say the story before, please don't guess so you don't spoil the suspense for others. But if you've not heard me say the story before, just take a guess. What do you think was the most value that people were getting from the restaurant? Is it the food? Is it the plate? Is it the table? The ambience? Yeah. Who else want to take a guess? No other ones. Let's move on quickly. So you'll be surprised that they did a survey, spoke to some customers, and they realized that what people valued the most about that restaurant was how clean their toilet was. Was how clean their toilet was. Why? Because there were other restaurants beside them who offer probably the same food, the same quality of food, but they are the only one that has very clean toilets. And interestingly, it's also a restaurant that is on a commuting road. Yeah, so a lot of people who are travelers stop to eat there. So many times people who have been traveling on the road for a while, if they stop there, they most likely want to eat themselves. But no matter how much that restaurant would have done, they wouldn't have guessed it without speaking to their customers. And they would have done everything, and they would probably start losing customers if they lose attention from their toilet. So that's the main value. And the moment they discovered that, they focused on it, made the toilet even cleaner, made it even more comfortable, and all that. So it's about finding what it's really valuable to your customers and honing in on that and doing more of that. So yeah,
I really like that story that you shared, Dari. I really like that story that you shared because I think that it speaks to the concept of hidden values, right? So it's possible to be so focused on this thing that you're doing, and there is a subliminal value behind it. There's a subliminal emotional connection, or some other sort of utility that you're not even aware of. And you're right, that's where it goes to talking to your customer. And then there is also that concept of tying several value streams together towards delivering one product, right? Because now they're still going to be giving good food, but then they also know, okay, we want to give good food, good ambience, but we also need to make sure that the toilets are clean. And if they wanted to go ahead and do a whole advertising campaign based on that, they could, because it is true for the value that they give to their customers. So that's a really, really great example of what it is to deliver value.
Yeah. So now tell us, so when a business now finds out what is the key value to their customers around their product, around their service, how can the businesses now ensure that they continuously deliver this value, not just once or once in a while, but continuously delivering the value?
It's continuous innovation, continuous integration, right? And that's kind of like what I was talking about when I said join together different value points in your product offering. So let's use that case. We're going to use this restaurant as a case study for a lot of conversations. Let's use that case, right? Now they know that what their customers, their sort of selling point pretty much for their restaurant is how clean their toilets are. So they would most likely go ahead to maybe hire more janitors, maybe start to include things into their toilets that could maybe have, some sorts of scents in their bathrooms, maybe even create more toilet stalls. They would invest some time and thought into that. But then you see, investing time and thought into that does not take away from the quality of everything else that they do as a business. So as a business who now knows what your value proposition is in terms of your customer, first thing you want to do is to expand and improve that thing, innovate that specific value that your customers have or gain from using your services and your products, right? And then integrate other things, include other things into it, right? So now for what I would consider to be progress for this restaurant, for instance, would be if after 2 quarters, they go and do another customer survey and they have people say, oh, we really like the toilets and we like that new meal that the chef has brought on the menu, right? So you want to innovate specific to that value, but also look for other value adds to bring to that, so that it's a whole communicating experience for your customers every time that they engage with you.
Wow, that's quite exciting to hear. Continuous innovation. Don't just think that, oh, we found the one thing and then we just keep doing this one thing continuously. There's this book that one of my mentors recommended to me. I can't remember the title now. And I just got it not so long ago. But something stuck out to me so much in that book, where he said that when you find what works, he said once you find what works, normally we say once you find what works, work on it. Yeah. But in his own case, that once you find what works, in essence, we're saying start looking for something else. Like, don't just find what works and focus on it. Like Tobe just said, you found the one thing, innovate, improve on it continuously, such that by the time you're doing another survey, people can find something else. And why is that important is because that makes it difficult for your competitors to imitate you. Because if other competitors find out that, oh, the clean toilets is where people are going there, they will also start making clean toilets. But if you've not thought ahead, like Tobe said, to continuously innovate, your competitors catch up with you and they're doing exactly the same thing, then you've lost your competitive edge. But once you find a competitive edge, own it on it, build upon it, do something else, find out what is working again, and keep expanding more value. I love that.
And something to add to that would also be like thinking of creating systems around your value. So in this case of the clean toilet being the value, right? The owner of that restaurant could say, okay, we know that the clean toilet is the thing that gives value. Let us create a sort of ambient cycle around the toilets, right? So from January to February, we're going to have a vanilla essence scent. From March to April, we're going to have a strawberry and cinnamon scent, right? So they keep having those changes, and they have it like a sort of set system where no one needs to actively go and physically do anything, but then it's a cycle that just keeps changing. And every time a person comes into the bathroom, it's a whole new sensory experience for them. Now, while they've created that system, they can then go and take all of those resources towards doing some modifications in their menu, changing the aesthetic of the interior, doing other things that bring additional value as well. So there are two things to think about. You want to continuously innovate around your value, and you also want to create a system around your value so that you can take your resources and build up other value verticals for yourself.
Oh, wow. Lovely. So my next question here is going to be, how do we, why exactly is it even important for the need to continuously deliver value to your customers? Why exactly is it important? What's the value of continuously delivering value?
What is the usefulness of giving people usefulness? Because so one thing that I always say to people is that there really is no idea that is new under the sun. Everything that you want to do, someone else has done it. Someone probably did it 100 years ago. Maybe they did it well, they failed at it, or someone did it last week. Nothing is new, right? What matters is how you do it and how you get a person to connect with you and the way that you do it. So first of all, for most products that we consume, you would find that you have an emotional connection to it. I mean, if you're a pragmatic person, you're probably using, common sense. Is it something I can afford? Is it something that's, the best quality that there is out there? Yes. But then when you find yourself being consistent at a particular vendor or a particular shop, there is an emotional connection to it. If you ask people who like to go to Starbucks, they have a particular Starbucks order that they get. People who like to go to McDonald's, it's the same thing, right? Now, you want to make sure that emotional connection that a person has with using your value, your products and your services stays consistent or it increases, right? You never want there to be a dip in the graph. You either want it to climb or to stay consistent, but never a dip. And that's why you need to consistently give value, because once there is a dip, once your customer experiences any form of dissatisfaction with your product, there is that chance that they would then open themselves up to trying something else. And once they try something else, you're now at the mercy of the other product being not good enough. If that other product is good enough, there goes your clientele. There goes a complete shift in the consumer behavior of your clients. So making sure that that connection you have, that valuable usefulness that you have with your customers and your clients is consistent, is very important to you being successful in your business, to you even feeling like a valuable person. For let's remove the money from the situation. You want to be a business that is of value within the business and consumption ecosystem. The only way to do it is to consistently make sure that your customers are satisfied.
Interesting. I love that sentence there, where you made the fact that if you don't continuously, if there's a dip at any point where people just say, oh, this person is not delivering good value enough, that might be the time when they will say, oh, maybe we should just try somebody else, or maybe we should just try a decent. And I mean, we can all say that we've probably been at that point where we've had such experience before.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
when you have a usual organization you patronize, but maybe they disappoint you once or twice, then the next thing is you want to try somebody else, and you don't want
Right,
to.
because most human beings are creatures of habit, right? We like what we like, and once you identify something that works, most people tend to stick to it. Now, if you're that thing that works and you suddenly stop working, they will start looking for options.
Yeah. And one thing I also like to say, as a matter of fact, is the fact that if you're doing a business and you really think of your customers, like you really love your customers, so to say, you really want to be that person who is adding value to them. You don't want to be inconsistent, isn't it? Because sometimes one moment of something going wrong, people just forget all the good things that has happened.
Isn't that normal human behavior? All it takes is one bad decision.
You just forget all the good things you've been doing in the past, and you just go, oh, this is not working. I mean, you get that a lot. And you get that a lot sometimes, even in relationships, isn't it? Where you offend your other half, and the person, you always do this. You always get on my nerves. I'm like, what about the times I took you out? What about the times I gave you some gift? No, she's forgotten that at that moment. She's just thinking about the offense that you've done.
That is true. And it's very difficult to come back from that, once a person experiences disappointment. I say a lot that disappointment, for me as a person, disappointment is one of my most complex emotions to think through, because once I feel disappointment at a person, over something that I consider to be a high value character trait, it sort of makes me question everything else. When, for instance, you trust that this person has never ever lied to you, or this person will never ever lie to you, and then you discover that they lied, it then makes you wonder, have they been lying to me about every single thing? So it's difficult to come back from that place of disappointment. And the way it is in human relationships is also the way it is with client relationships. Gaining trust with your clientele is of paramount importance. And once you gain that trust, keeping the trust is even more important.
Yeah, indeed. So now that we know that we get a clue into what value is, we understand that we need to continuously deliver value. We know that this is something essential to gain trust and keep customers' trust, and to be able to retain your customers so they don't start looking elsewhere. I mean, maintain their loyalty by continuously delivering value. How can organizations now then design the strategies that would help them to continuously deliver value?
So from an organizational standpoint, especially when you're thinking, when you're thinking agile, right? Your first customers as an organization is actually the people who work for you. Right? The people who are part of your process and part of your system. Those are the first people that you need to listen to. If you've got maybe a fashion business and you've got a bunch of tailors with you, you want to listen to your tailors and get a pulse of how they feel doing their work, because you see, these people are the ones that are going to create the output. And if the people who are creating the output are dissatisfied, you can be sure that the output they will create will not satisfy your customers, right? So you first of all need to have that buy-in with those who work for you. Like you rightly said, your company is as agile as the least agile person within that system. You need to make sure that the people who are with you have a good picture of who your John is. Remember when I talked about your John, being your customer, right? You need to know that they have a good picture of who your John is. And if possible, let them be your John, because for most people who are entrepreneurs, whatever service or products that you're providing are things that you can possibly use for yourself, your staff can
Mm.
possibly use. So
Yeah.
let them be your John as well, because if they're your John, they can definitely think like your John, right? You want to
Yeah.
make sure that they know your John. You want to make sure that they feel capable and empowered to make decisions that help your John. You want to make sure that they feel heard, right? With Agile, you know how Agile puts a lot of focus on the people. It takes the focus from the process to the people. It takes the
Yeah.
focus from negotiation to collaboration and communication, right?
Yeah.
So you want to have that within your organization where the people who are helping you to provide this value already feel valuable, and they
Mm.
feel like it's not, you telling them what to do. It is all of you collaborating and working together to
Yeah.
provide something for your audience and your customers.
Oh, I really love that response. The place of focusing on the people that you work with. And interestingly, this ties with something that came out from the last session I did with one of my mentors. We're talking about beyond profits, finding purpose in business. And he said something that's about we need to see people beyond just factors of production. And
Right.
we don't just use the people working with us to deliver value to our customers. We deliver value to those people even first. Like, um,
Yes.
thanks for that, Tobe. Like, start by thinking about the people, because
Mm-hmm.
if the people working with you are not excited, either as direct employees or partners or suppliers, I mean, they're kind of like your customers as well, too. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's really good. That's really good. So now, how then can we ensure a structure within that organization? Because one of the things that happen with people sometimes is well, we know that we need to do this as an organization, but somehow there is some form of breakdown in communication, breakdown in structure, breakdown in XYZ within how things are connected. So, how can an organization, whether it's an organization of 2, 3 people, or is an organization of hundreds or thousands of people, how can they build the structure? How can they build a team structure within themselves and make sure that they are delivering value continuously and they are delivering this value fast enough?
So the first thing that I would say is when you're thinking about a company that is 2 or 3 people versus a company that is 100 people. I don't see you anymore, Dari. I'm not sure if this is still on. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm with you.
Oh, okay. Okay. So when you're talking about a company that's 2 or 3 people versus a company that's 100 people, um, it it would not necessarily be the exact same thing, right? Because it's easier to manage a smaller group versus a bigger group. However, from the perspective of a larger group, what I would first say is break up the larger group into smaller units, into smaller functional units, and work outwards, work unit by unit, until it spreads. Different people who go into for agile transformations, there's always the argument: do you want to start from bottom up or do you want to start from top down? I am a top down type of person because the mindset at the top making the decisions, especially the financial decisions, has to sort of change and filter down to the way that work is done, right? So with any organization that wants to start to work in an agile way, I would say start from the top. And the top is whoever it is that has the final say on how the finances of that organization is distributed, how those decisions are made, who finances the projects, that person whose signature is on the check. That is the place to start. Now, you want that person to first of all start to think differently about how they have their verticals within the company, right? So instead of saying, I have a human resource unit that only does human resource, I have a logistics unit that only takes care of my logistics relations. I have a customer service unit that takes care of all that. You want that to help that person think about creating a smaller microcosm of their company where there is a HR person, a logistics person, a customer relations person, and these 3 people can work together to think through one John who is utilizing all of those services and how best to serve that John, right? So now if you can get that person at the top to think about creating microcosms of their system, all you need is one. All you need is one microcosm, and you need that one microcosm to work. Now, once that works, you can easily duplicate. Success is very, very easy to duplicate. to do. You can, once you've done it once, you can do it again. It's a muscle, right? Once, if for instance, if you can run 100 miles, chances are that you can run 100 miles again. As long as you do it once, you can do it again. So all you need is that one functional unit at first. And so start from the top, help that person think differently about how they align their verticals, break down just create one microchasm that takes something from all of the different verticals and help them establish that as a singular independent unit that works on its own. So it's like having a mother company and having several little tiny companies under you. That's the first mindset change. The second mindset change, of course, would be for those people who are in the microchasm to feel like they have autonomy, right? So you want to take away the need to micromanage. You want to improve your communication to where you tell these people, this is the big picture, this is what we're driving towards, this is the end game, and you trust them to run towards the end game. You don't have to tell them how to run. You don't have to tell them when to jog, when to walk, when to dance. Just tell them, get to the end. As long as you get to the end, we're happy. Most human beings who have full autonomy over the decisions that they make will make decisions that will get them to their end. It's a psychological thing, right? So first thing is help the person at the top break down their silos, and then the people who form this new microchasm, give them trust and autonomy. They will make mistakes. They will do things that will make you pull your hair out. But then because there is that trust and you've given them the room and environment to fail, they will fail forward, learn from their mistakes, and keep moving on. So success with that singular microchasm can then be replicated across the organization to help create other smaller, bits and pieces of successful microchasms that serve the different Johns and Janes of the company.
Oh, thank you for that. And what you've just explained there really is something that I've worked in an organization where I suffered the other side of it. Yeah, where you have this us versus them mentality. And then this team will say, no, it's currently not with us. We did our own part right. It's the other team. And then you have a lot of breakdown in between conversation and all that. But if only that organization have organized around value, where you know that you don't just put people in their silos, pull them out, or this is the product you're all working to deliver, or this is the value you're all working to deliver together as a team. They wouldn't be us. They know that we're all in this together to make this thing work. Yeah. And I love one thing that you've done in this explanation here is that sometimes when we discuss with some Agile experts, they try as much as possible to throw some of these terminologies and Agile and methodologies and things around. But you've stayed around that to explain this in plain term for people, how they can actually go around this. However, I hope that's not happening again. Okay, someone just joined. Please go on mute, please. My heart skipped a beat immediately.
Same here.
All right. So I love how you just explained that very plainly, how people can actually structure within the organization. So for the benefit of people who want to go with some study afterwards, so around the place of structure around that, will you please point out some Agile methodologies out there that pretty much provide some guidelines in doing this kind of thing that some people might say, oh, I'm going to study that particular one and see how I can use it?
Well, I mean, first, the most popular methodology is the Scrum methodology, right? And I personally find it to be the most useful. I've worked in the Scrum framework and I've worked in the Kanban framework. Both are valuable, but I feel like the guidelines which Scrum proposes are easy, very, very easy to adapt, not just to the corporate life, but also even to your personal life, right? So I think if you want to educate yourself and, just think through how you can break things down and work to create microchasms, definitely think about scrumming through it and creating a Scrum team. So within a Scrum team, you're literally getting people who have different levels of expertise. So now we're going to get a little bit technical. Forgive me if you're not a technical person, but this is the easiest way I can try to explain this. Now, in a traditional technological space, you're going to have a group of people who are developers, you're going to have a group of people who are analysts, a group of people who are testers, a group of people who are quality assurance people, and then you're going to have your your deployers, and then maybe, depending on the kind of structure you're working, you're going to have people who take care of warranty, right, after you've gone live with whatever software you're going live with, right? Now, those are all different silos, right? Now, if to successfully create that microcosm, you want to take one expert from all of these different silos and put them together in one team and say, hey, you know what, we're bringing all of you together and we want you guys to work on creating a new clipper that men with beard are going to enjoy using, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, those people are going to think through the analysis, the development, the testing, the quality assurance, the deployment, the warranty. They're going to do everything within their one team. So it's never going to be a situation where the developers are done and they're saying, we're done, we're waiting for the testers to finish. No, it's going to be as the developer is working, the tester is right there and saying, oh, this is what you're doing. Okay, cool. As you're writing one line of code, the tester is writing one test case to fit that line of code. So it's a sort of collaborative effort where everyone that can make smart decisions about that value is sitting together in a room if possible, and they're thinking through how to solve that problem. Things will change, right? So as a developer is working on stuff, the analyst might find some new information that would be vital to how the developer is working. So instead of going through whatever channels of bureaucracy to get that information to the developer, they can just go right directly because the developer is on their team. Hey, Mr. Teammate person, this is what I found. Perhaps if you write this code this way instead of that way, it might give us this new value that we've seen. And it's easier to work that way. So what you would find is at the end of whatever period of time that you've given them, they will have something. It may be the clipper that you've asked for, or it may be something that is better than a clipper, but it will be a thing that helps men with beard take care of their beard. You see what I'm saying? So Scrum, I think, gives us the most holistic idea on how to pull different experts together and have them in one space, thinking through the same problem, working together on a set cadence. So I would recommend that anyone should just go ahead, research the Scrum framework. And then if you are thinking about it from the perspective of a big company, then you want to think about this, you want to learn the Scrum framework, and then you want to learn how to scale the Scrum framework. Because at that point, you're then thinking of different microcosms and how those different microcosms are working together towards the overall big picture of this big company, right? So Scrum and then scaling Scrum. Those are those for me are two things that I would recommend.
Good. So if you want to get a bit more insight around Scrum, you can check the scrumguides.org. Scrumguides.org. I think you can. I think a 19-page document. So when Tobe says it's something you can quickly understand and start working on, although it will take a while to master, but you can quickly study a 19-page document, have some insight on how to do it, and then start doing something within your team and continuous learning in that process as well too. That even though a lot of time people still see it around software projects, but people do it beyond that. I think it was McKinsey who wrote this very lovely article around agile marketing and how you can set up an agile marketing team and things like that. Just like Tobe was saying, different expertise, pull them together into one team. And some organizations use the terminology a war room. So they have a common space where they all work out from together. So there is that continuous collaboration amidst everybody sharing ideas and things like that. So that's quite lovely. So we're already getting some questions coming in. So I'll try very quickly to wrap up the questions from my own end so we can start taking questions from others as well too. So, and I think my questions are more like next step action, because what's very important, I mean, like you said today, it's very like being agile, it's around, okay, there's this big picture thing, but breaking it down and find out the small incremental steps you can take towards that big picture. So with just the little information we've shared today, so if you're addressing business owners here today, what can that person go from here to there? Either as a business owner who is just an individual trying to start out, or somebody who have a few people they work together with trying to start out. What would be a next step, like an advice you will give to say, yeah, I want to implement what I've heard. What can you do?
Well, for me, the first thing would be to help yourself become agile, right? Because if you have the mindset and you're seeing the ways in which it is of value to you, it would be easy for you to become an advocate for agility. I'll probably share it with you at some point. I've got this little PDF document that I made a few months ago where
Okay.
I call it Daily Agile. And on it,
Okay.
I share little ways that you can incorporate agility into your daily life, because it is, you know how when you want to learn something new, for most of us, because we're adults, right? Learning is not about gaining new knowledge. It's about replacing old knowledge, right? So you have to unlearn what you know and then learn something new. You have to change habits. So as a person who is choosing to make first steps, it would be start changing habits, start thinking of more agile ways to do things. Some of the suggestions I give here, first one I give is to not hesitate. Second one is to be very adaptable, plan ahead, make goals that are manageable, order your priorities, make your daily regular tasks detailed and time boxed, create consistency and cadence in your personal life for your personal self and within your business, include assessment and feedback. Assessment and feedback is
Mm.
one of the most valuable things that I have found in my agility journey. It's just beautiful because for everything that you do, maybe not everything, but then for most things that you do, you're able to get real-time feedback to know whether or not this thing is good enough, whether or not it has met the standard, whether or not it has been useful to whoever it is that's supposed to use it. And then one mindset I think to adopt when you are thinking of incorporating Agile into your daily space is that in this scenario, you are your customer. Everything that you're
Mm.
doing is to give value to you, Dari, or to me,
Yeah.
Tobe, right? So thinking of yourself as your customer and then having that thing where you are consistently assessing and giving yourself feedback, it helps you get into that space of mental and emotional retrospection, right? And you know, once you're a person who is retrospective, who is able to look at yourself in the mirror and say, this is where I messed up, this is where I did right, this is where I did wrong, you make better decisions.
Mm.
It's just the natural flow of human development, right? So I think definitely the first step would be for you as a person to switch your mindset and become agile. As the people around you start to see changes in the way that you do things, people who are your staff would pick up your traits, or you can teach them your traits. People who are not your staff and just people who associate with you would see the differences in you and either start to ask you questions or start to mimic you. And that is how you're able to get a full-on, you know, agile mindset growth around your personal space, and then start to filter that to your business.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Thank you very much for that. I mean, personally, myself, I've picked up a challenge there of what I need to work on. Like the time box point that really hits me. Like, oh, I pretty much tried to get my team to do this, but personally, and interestingly, it's one of the things that um, came to me repeatedly this week around. I mean, there's this book called Deep Work that talks about the fact that you need to be able to plan moments where you have concentrated effort, stay away from your phones and distractions and just deliver something. So I love that time box thing. So when you're trying to deliver something, sometimes just tell yourself, I'm working on this for 2 hours or 2 days
Yeah,
or 3 days.
yeah.
And at the end of
Mm-hmm.
it, get some feedback continuously, like Tobe is saying. Getting feedback is very, very essential. You're a customer to yourself, isn't it, to start with?
Yes.
And your immediate family is also an extension of your customers as well, too, because these are people that are affected by your actions. So you want to get feedback from them and close friends, feedback on whatever it is you're working on. Feedback is very, very essential. A lot of time when we finish sessions like this, we ask people for some feedback, even as a chat or the emails we send at the end, just be able to make sure that one way or the other, we're delivering value to you didn't just waste your 1 hour or your 90 minutes that you spent on the call. So I love that example. And I think it pretty much addresses the next question I was going to ask, which is around even as employees, what can they do as next step from here? Because you've brought to the point that as individuals, they need to do something. But I'm going to now turn that question a bit on its head. And in the sense that, so for someone now who is looking at, say, I've heard about this agile thing and I'm trying to position myself for a career along this path. What do I need to do? How do I need to learn? Or for people who are already in this path, they've probably got roles like product owners or scrum masters or work in a scrum team or even other methodologies that we have out there, scaled agile framework, scrum at scale and the rest of it. But they've listened to this today now, but they need to take something out of here that they can work on as action step. So
Well, the
both for
first
those who
thing
are
is
new and those
to,
who are in.
yeah,
Sorry.
The first thing would be to think in terms of continuous improvement, right? So go through the landscape. Within the agile landscape, there are so many service providers, knowledge providers. There are so many certification providers. Research some of these providers and pick one, right? I always say pick one framework and get all the knowledge you can possibly get from that one framework. The framework that I chose was Scaled Agile. So within the Scaled Agile framework, I have multiple certifications, and I am certified to train within that framework, right? So pick a framework and sort of immerse yourself in it, continuously improve within that framework. The companies that implement that framework or that want to adopt that framework will hire you, right? Now, there's one thing to be qualified on paper, and it's another thing to actually have the mindset and be able to communicate the mindset. So if you remember in our conversation, I mentioned that I used to work in the media. I was working in the media. I wasn't wholly technical, but within my media space, I was agile. I was, even though at that time I couldn't tell you all of the terminologies and all of the, the framework statements or the manifesto and all of that, but then with the knowledge, I could sit down and say, oh, the way that I've been thinking through problems and the way that I've been solutioning problems has been agile. And then you can take your already existing experience and just match it up to the new knowledge you have, and find those places in which you have actually been agile. And if you haven't, you can find those places where you haven't been agile and think about how you would do better if you were in that position again, right? So having the mindset, I think, is more important than having the paper qualification and certification. But then if you want to move forward in a career, definitely the first thing that you need to think about is having the certification. And I would recommend that you do that within a specific framework vertical.
Thank you for that. So please get your questions coming in, and we'll try to wrap up in a few minutes from now, as soon as I'm able to get through the questions. So we have a question here from Madeline, and the question here is saying, how do you know that it's the, I missed the charts now. Okay, it's back. Okay, so how do you know that it's the next right step or decision, one that it's almost foolproof, that leads you to where you want to be? Can you give certain requirements or criteria? Know how it's the best right decision? Okay, I don't know if I get a full context of this question, really. So
I think what I understand from it is, like, how do you know that the next decision you're about to take is the next best decision? That's kind of like what I'm understanding.
Okay, Madeline, is that correct? Want to be sure that we are offering value.
Yes, right. Okay. Okay, thank you, modeling. Well, modeling, there is no way to know, because we're human beings, we're not magicians. We will never know for sure that what we are doing is the next best thing. However, we can take our best guess and match it against the value that we're trying to achieve. You see, remember when we were talking about this, we said you want to paint the big picture. You want to know what the big value is that you're trying to achieve. If, for instance, what you want is to become a professor at a particular university, right? Every small decision that you make, including getting your first degree, getting your master's degree, getting your PhD or whatever, every small decision you make needs to get you to that big picture. Are you certain that getting a master's degree in biology is going to give you the professorship that you want? You don't know. Biology might be the wrong course to get a master's degree in. But hey, you have that master's degree. And then if you go ahead to go and get a PhD in psychology, for instance, maybe that PhD in psychology is what will be the final linchpin that will get you your professorship, right? So you never really know. And then you just need to keep doing that matching. And then you need to give yourself the space to fail. Funny enough, I made a tweet about it yesterday. I'm like, most of the best lessons that we have learned in life have come from our failures. And that also is the value of the feedback cycle within the Scrum framework, right? So you want to know quickly whether or not you failed, or whether you are failing, or whether or not what you're doing is good or bad, right? The sooner you know, the sooner you can pivot, right? So your decision to start with may not be right, but you have made a decision and you have started. As you do, you will see whether or not it is delivering value. If it is not, you get the feedback and you pivot. I hope that answers your question, modeling.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. Yeah, thank you for that. We can only just decide with the amount of information that we have. So, and like that, and that's why one of the things around Agile is trying to say, you don't plan too far away. You make sure you plan, because one of that, and I will stop there to let Tobe to talk a bit about it, because one of the challenge we have sometimes with people say, oh, we are being Agile, we don't need to do any plan. Let's just start working on this and all that. So I'll just stop a bit there and let Tobe just address that misconception beyond the place of Agile. Being Agile, you do some planning, but you don't do too long planning, not that you don't do any planning at all.
Yes. So within agility, there is, I actually think that there is quite a lot of planning that goes on within the Agile space, right? However, like you said, you're making short-term plans, and you're making short-term plans with a clear visibility on the big picture. The big picture is always up and out there, and the big picture is always about value, right? Now, if you are working towards creating a square handbag, that is your big picture. You can make mistakes, even if new technology comes in, because you are so focused on creating a square handbag. That would be the only thing that you're thinking about. But if you are thinking to yourself, I want to create something in which women can put all their important items and it's trendy and makes them feel happy, that's the big picture. You're creating that value, that thing that helps women carry their items and makes them feel trendy. It doesn't matter if it's a square, circle, triangle, oblong, it doesn't matter. But then you are working towards the why. That's why, the big value you're trying to create is always there, but then the short-term plans is what's going to help you say, okay, what's reigning right now? It's 2020. Are square bags in vogue or circle bags in vogue? If it's circle bags, that means we need to be making a bag that is circle shaped. But then you also don't want to make a bag that's a perfect circle, because you know that seasons change, and in 2 or 3 weeks, it could become a triangle. So you want to make a bag that is circle, but can easily be turned into a triangle. You see, that's why you're making short-term plans instead of working towards this one big thing in one fell swoop. So there's a lot of planning that goes into Agile, but your planning is short-term. You get your short-term value, you're happy with it, and you build incrementally over that short-term value that you've created.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Thank you for that. And I hope Tobe is still okay. Yeah, there was a bit of a pause on the internet earlier. So, so I love what you've just really talked about, which is around the fact that don't be too focused on the products, but really the value that your product is offering, the problem that your product is solving. When you focus on the problem you are solving, on the value you are offering, you can innovate with your product, you can improve on the product. But sometimes some people are so fixed on their products. Oh, no. I got this recipe from my great-grandmother. We can't change it. That's what we must keep offering in this restaurant or things like that. So try to focus on the value you're offering to the customers and make sure that at every point in time, your product is in tune and in line with the value. Okay, so there's a question here from Tonya. Tonya, do you want to come off mute and talk about your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great.
Hi, Dare. Hi, Tobe.
The big lengthy.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay. Hi. Yes, thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge from your experience in Agile methods. So I could see that you had, Tobe, I could see that you have an educational experience in economics, and I just finished up my master's in economics, but I really love the Agile method, like what it represents, what it stands for. So I'm thinking I really want to add this methodology to my life and also in my career. And I saw that you also had that change, like you were in economics, then you went to media, and then now you're into engagements and all of that. So I was wondering, why did you choose this path, this Agile coaching path, and how can I get started on being an Agile expert? Because I can see you have a lot of certifications. I'm like, which should I start with? And just to get your feedback on that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, first of all, I have to say that, I am very impressed with your research. Wow. Thank you so much, Tonia. um, and yes, you're correct. I have a background in econs, and then I also have a professional background in the media, and then I switched completely to IT. The reason for my switch was because I was geographically changed. I moved from Nigeria to the United States, right? And so when you have that sort of change in your life, a lot of, for some people, maybe not everyone, but then for me, what that meant was a lot of things had to change, including what I was choosing to do with myself career wise. um, the reason I made the change to the technology and agile space is because within this space there is a lot of room. It's not terminal, right?
Mm.
I started out being an analyst, and then I went in, was part of the development team, became a product owner, coach, and all of that. And now I have come out of the traditional agile professional path, and I
Mm.
have moved into a corporate America path. However, what is serving me within my corporate America path is all of my experience and knowledge in the agile space. So the knowledge and experience you get within agile is very transmutable. You can use agility in every single industry in the world, because again, it is a mindset. It's not a set, it's not a set law, or something that is specific to a particular industry. It's a mindset that gives you a toolbox for making decisions, for thinking, right? And that is thought that can be applied anywhere. Now, for you who wants to transition, if what you want is to transition into technology like I did, going in to get certifications is definitely your surest way to go into that space. Now you need to determine what sorts of things you're interested in within the IT space. Are you interested in project management? Are you interested in development? Are you interested in analysis, testing? You need to figure out what it is within the technology space that you're interested in, and then do the certifications that make you valuable within that space. If you're interested in project management, then the easiest route for you to go would be through getting some sort of Scrum Master certification, because it's not exactly project management, but it is under the project management umbrella within any sort of corporate organization. If what you want is to go in and be a developer, for instance, then you probably want to get maybe some DevOps certification, or some certification and knowledge with technical languages. You want to learn SQL, Java, and all of that, right? So those are the things you need to think about. But one thing I can tell you is, regardless of what you decide to do within the technical space or any industry you decide to switch into, the core thing that will be of value to you is your ability to communicate the experience that you already have and tell your
Mm.
story in a compelling way. Now, since you're already interested in agile, remember when I was talking about my experience, I mentioned that even though I didn't know the terms, I could easily relate my previous experience in the media industry to me having the agile mindset, to me thinking through my
Mm.
problems in an agile way, right? So you now need to be able to learn the terms and then think about the experiences that you've had, whether it's in your school, whatever sort of experience you've had. Think about that and think about how to tell the story of your experience using those terms. That helps your communication. That's what's going to help you in your interviews and help you move forward.
Thank you
Does that
very
help, Tonya?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. And I had another
You're welcome.
question. And
Mhm.
the question is, how can agile methods be applied to change management and project management in organizations? Because I'm very interested in change management. I see that you need to have some form of project management certification or Scrum. But just to get your your take on that, how can agile methods be applied to change management? Is it still having the micro teams, top-down method as you mentioned? Yes. Okay. So
Yes, I would still say it's the micro teams, and for in my experience, especially as a coach, I have found that the most successful transformations happen when they happen top down. Sometimes it is bottom up. I worked for a company where it was a bottom up transformation. It was tough, but it was happening. It took significantly longer. It's still in process, to be honest. And so we had to create situations where we were doing like a scrum fall type of working situation. But we were making it work, and it was moving up slowly. Depending on who you're working for, you could do bottom up or top down, but you always succeed by creating microchasms. You have to have the small group of people that you can influence, and you can help to have a different mindset towards the way that they do their work. Help them to think differently. As those people start to achieve success, it will be easy to replicate it across other people within the organization.
Yes. Yes. Okay, thank you. And my last
You're
question
welcome.
would be, I heard you say something about Scale Agile framework. So I wanted to know the difference between Scrum framework and Scale Agile framework that you mentioned.
Well, so Dari gave an example about companies, right? If you're talking about a company that's like 3 people versus a company that's like 100 people. So if you're a company with, let's take the company that I work for instance, Amazon right now. Amazon is a big global company.
Very big, yeah.
Right. Now, it is not possible for Amazon to do just Scrum, because at every given point in time, there are teams of people who are working on different parts of a particular value deliverable. So if, for instance, let's say you want to create a television, right? There's going to be one team that has the expertise for creating the carcass, the frame of the TV. There's going to be another team that's got the expertise for creating the LED and all of the colors and all that. There's going to be another team that's got the expertise for doing the wiring and the, cable connection and the Wi-Fi thingy for all that, right? So now you have 3 different teams, and these 3 different teams are working together towards delivering this television value, right? With scaling, you learn how to coordinate those teams so that they're delivering their individual value at a set cadence and integrating their individual value across their teams to where by the time they're done and they integrate everything they've done, they create the TV that is ready to go. So you don't want a situation where the people who are working on the canvas, the what you call it now, the frame of the TV are done, and they're waiting for those ones that are doing the LED, or they're now waiting for those ones that do the wire. You want to create a situation where all of them are working in cadence, and they're continuously integrating and making sure that all the bits and pieces of their individual value are working well together. And by the time they're all done, you have that one big final value that you're trying to create. So that's where scaling comes in. It teaches you the mechanics of removing risk, working out dependencies, and also working out the finances. Money is a very important conversation to have when you're thinking of scaling. It works out the finances for how these verticals are financed through the project lifecycle.
Okay, thank you so much, Tobe. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess there's another question there. Or the person is about to ask the question.
Hi, it's Femi here. Hello,
Okay.
Tobe. I have 2
Femi.
questions in one. Listening to what you just talked about, scaled agile, how does that relate to having a scrum of scrum in a scrum where you have several scrum teams working on a particular product? How does that relate? And then secondly, I had a conversation with someone on Instagram where he said that the safe approach is actually damaging to an organization's ability to move towards agility. What's your take on that?
Okay, so I'm going to start with your first question about Scrum of Scrums and how that helps with and how that plays into scaling. That really is what it is to scale, right? Because when you're in your Scrum of Scrums meetings, you are able to gain visibility into what every team is doing and figure out the cadence and the workflow across these several teams. That also goes into having that's why a PI planning, for instance, is important, right? You want to have everyone who is working towards a particular value delivery have a good picture of the value delivery. So remember when we were talking about the verticals, getting someone from the HR department, getting someone from the logistics department, customer service department, people have different sorts of skill sets and expertise. You're not going to tell a person, oh, because I'm taking you to a scrum team, all the things that you know how to do, I'm going to stop you from doing them, and you're going to start having to learn new skills to deliver. If you're doing that, you're going to frustrate the human being. So you need to allow people have their expertise and then use their expertise in the best way possible to achieve the value. So that means a person who, for instance, knows how to do front-end development, it would be a disservice for you and your company to put them on a project where all they can do is back-end development. You're going to waste everybody's time. However, if you let him do his front-end development and you have another team that's doing the back-end development, and you figure out a way to help them work together and deliver on cadence and integrate everything that they do on cadence, they would, you know, they would get to the end of the value delivery chain at the same time. It's like using a train to get to a destination versus using multiple cars. If you have 10 people in one car, and they're all driving at their different speeds on their different roads, especially if you're driving in Nigeria, you guys will get there at very different times, and it will be difficult to start whatever event you're trying to start at a given time. But if everyone is on one train and you know that that train is moving together, if the train breaks, the whole train breaks. If the train stops, the whole train stops. When the train arrives at its destination, everyone arrives at its destination, right? So that, I think, that I believe is really what the value is with scaling. Scrum of Scrums helps you with that. Your PI planning helps you with that. Creating your release trains according to your value streams within the company definitely helps you with that. All those things, I believe, work together. And then you talked about the SAFE framework being a disservice to companies and hindering their agility journey. I haven't come across
that's not my
that
opinion.
thought. Okay. Right, yeah. I haven't come across that thought. I've not engaged with. I would very much like to engage with this person that you engage with, just so that I get a good picture of what they mean. But in my experience, I don't see that to be the case. Of course, when a company is just becoming agile, when they're starting their transformative journey, and this is where I speak about doing a bottom-up transformation, right? When a company is starting its transformation journey, and maybe someone has just told the boss, oh yeah, we need to create agile trains, let's go ahead and do a train, yes, PI planning, they would go ahead and they would do that, right? But then within the PI planning, there isn't an already existing buy-in from the executives, from the people who are paying. The people who are paying play a vital role to a successful transformation. Now, if those people don't already have an inherent buy-in and have already changed their mindset, when you go ahead and create the agile trains and you implement all of the SAFE recommendations, there will still be blockers, because those people who pay the bills will still come in and create some sort of interruption. It's not like they're intending to frustrate your work. It is that they have not been fully won over to the agile side. They don't think about their value delivery in an agile way. What they're thinking about is doing this here and now, because this thing has the highest voice. This is the noisiest thing right now, and so it must be done now. They don't have that mindset where sometimes, even if something is the noisiest, you need to take it with all its noise, put it in a box, and break it down to the smallest unit of value before you move, right? So when you are implementing agile in an unhealthy way, whatever framework you're using, there are going to be issues, there are going to be hindrances, right? So perhaps this person you're engaging with has experienced a situation where a transformation was initiated in an unhealthy way, or where there weren't a lot of agile champions to help move things along, or maybe just situations where they had coaches that were more directive than coaching, you know? So all of these things come together to make it a less than valuable experience, and to make it difficult for you to attain agility within a shorter space of time. So that might be where that person is coming from. But I definitely do not agree that in and of itself, SAFE creates problems. I think that it solves more problems than it creates.
Yeah,
thanks.
And to just chip in a thing or two around it. I mean, there was this conversation that someone I had it one time when someone was saying that scaling Agile, that the best way to scale Agile is not to scale Agile. Yeah. And I had this debate in a business agility class I was facilitating. Interestingly, an Agile coach was one of the participants in that course. And in the course of the conversation, what we actually came to agree on is that point that it's not, think beyond outside agility. Anytime you are trying to do anything on a large scale, there will be more problems than when you're just trying to, if you're trying to plan a birthday party for just 5 people, the problems you would experience is different from when you're trying to plan a wedding for 500 people. So it's not about scaled Agile itself ruining the whole thing, but it's just easy. I mean, even as little as Scrum is, a lot of organizations are still messing the whole thing up. You have a Scrum team where you have a Scrum Master, you have a project manager, you have a product owner, and sometimes the team does not know if they should listen to the product owner or they should listen to the project manager. And some of these things are still there. And something that Tobe said that's very key as well too is, what's the role of the Agile coach within that organization? Are you just telling people what to do, or you are helping them to do what is right? And it might have its teething issues, but over time, and as Tobe kept hammering on and on as well, to the fact that getting the buy-in from the top is very essential. And that's why with scaled Agile, for instance, when you're trying to roll out your roadmap, one of the first things you want to do is train the leaders, isn't it? Make sure they understand what they're into and how, because it's going to affect the budgeting structure. Because some people are trying to do scaled Agile, but the way they're planning their budget is still in the old way. And Agile generally is trying to move us from thinking project to thinking product. So many people are trying to do Agile projects, and it really is where most of the problems are springing out from. Once we say we are being Agile, we're trying to think of a product team rather than a project team. These guys will start with it and go on managing it forever till Jesus comes, or till when the product stops existing. So I think
that is very correct. Yes.
Yeah, so we can, I love that line of conversation, and in fact, it's actually stirring up some thoughts around perhaps one of those days we might talk about this, Tobe, maybe do some kind of like virtual roundtable, get some other people who are Agile experts in the group and discuss some of these things so that people can share the challenges they're having, others can share how they've surmounted those challenges, and that could actually give us some way forward in things like this. So final 2 questions, because I want us to wrap up in less than 5 minutes from now, please. Someone said about the fact that some things are unpredictable with planning and Agile, does that mean you can't really do Agile when you have to plan, when some things are not predictable? I tried to, what's the word? What's that word again, when you just summarize something? It's not coming to me. Rephrase. Yeah. Rephrase, thank you. I just tried to paraphrase that word, So, but if the owner of that question think I've not done justice, please talk now or keep silence till the end of the call. All right, I think I've done it well then. So Agile, planning, and predictability, how do you marry these things?
So with, kind of like with, was it modeling's question? You really do not ever know, right? With Agile, and specifically with the Scrum framework, you have a lot of room, especially at the beginning, to make guesses. Right, you're allowed to make guesses just based off of what what your proclivities are. But then as you start to get data, as you start to work and you start to see what works, you now have empirical evidence, and you can use your empirical evidence to make decisions. Of course, let's take the year 2020 for instance. Any person who was keeping track of 2018 and 2019 and the way they were making progress in life, and then use that empirical evidence to make plans for their 2020, would be completely shocked, because 2020 has given us a lot of situations that we did not consider, a lot of things that we did not even imagine to be the case, right? So as much as you have empirical evidence and you can use that to make decisions and make plans, there will always be external shocks. Let me not say always, there will sometimes be external shocks. But the beauty of Agile is, because you're making your decisions and your plannings for such short-term intervals, it would be easy for you to pivot. And even if your pivot is going to cause you a loss, the loss is not going to be monumental, because all you have lost would be 2 weeks, 1 month, maybe even 3 weeks, 3 months, right? You could maybe lose 3 months. But then think about the amount of loss you would experience if what you're losing is 12 months versus 3 months. Within agility, is the inbuilt need and ability to pivot, easily change your mind, change your plans, taking account into the new data that you have in front of you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, 2020, now I'm thinking about writing an article, 2020, a case for agility. Because
that could work. You know what? We should do that. That could absolutely work, because I feel like anyone who has been in a personal space where they've just not been able to take stock of what 2020 has been and figure out ways to change things in their personal life and their business, such a person would be going through a very, very hard time right now. It would be very, very difficult. It's a mental, psychological, and emotional strain on everybody across the world. So pivoting is a very, very important skill and muscle to have.
Yeah. Okay, so good. Plan the little you can plan part time. So when things happen, you can easily adapt than when you spend so much time planning for so long. That's why with things like Scrum, you just have like 2-week sprints, a maximum of 1-week sprints, and you can refine your work approach within those short time. So finally, I'm gonna ask this interesting question around what is the place of PMP certification? I mean, when it talks about project management, PMP has always been like the ultimate certification you want to attain to. But now with the agility and Agile telling us that let's move away from project mindset to product mindset, what is your take on PMP certification and its relevance today?
I think that it is still relevant. I don't think that Agile throws anything away. I don't, because I remember when I first started gaining knowledge within the Agile space, one of the questions that came up is, okay, where is my role in this? Like some people felt like, especially when the teams are called development teams, and analysts would be like, I'm not a developer. How am I supposed to be part of this, right? But as you get to evolve and gain knowledge, you'd realize that if anything, what Agile does is it takes what you already know, it takes what is already the status quo, and it helps you think differently about it. So all of the tenets of project management, I mean, in project management, something that I believe you learn is how to do risk planning, right? You want to do risk and dependency planning. The foundations of that knowledge is what you implement during your PI planning, right? Because during PI planning, you do risk and dependency planning as well. You have to go through the Rome cycle. Like it's never a knowledge loss. And I think that the PMP certification is still valuable. If, however, you want to make sure that you're not losing anything, the Project Management Institute has the Agile version of a PMP certificate, right? So you can take that if you don't want to box yourself in too much. But I really don't think that having a PMP certificate takes anything away from your certificate backlog.
Yeah, that's really true. I agree with you. PMP, and just like we've talked about here, thinking about your customers. So as an individual person, when you think about the companies that want to hire you as a customer engaging your servants, you want to also check what are the things they value. So some organizations still place a lot of premium on PMP. So for that reason, if it's something you desire, you go for it. But if you're trying to just start out today and you just want to do one and you're thinking Agile, like Tobe said, an ACP will probably be a better recommendation. But if you want to do many and you can add the PMP to it, by all means, please do. It's still very relevant. Okay, thank you very much, Tobe, for your time with us today. Really appreciate. I'm sure a lot of people have learned a lot. And so while I'm just wrapping up, I'd like us to do something. Please just give your feedback in the comment section in just one word or one short sentence. Either you want to give a feedback on what was your biggest takeaway from today's session, or you just want to give a feedback on what you feel about today's session. We would be grateful to hear from you. So please drop your comments in the comment section as a feedback to us, because sometimes when we send the link to feedback form in the email where we include the link to the recording, not a lot of people bother clicking that link to fill in the stuff. So please, and Tobe has shared a PDF in the comment section as well too, which I'm sure you can download.
Yes, it's a, I hope it'll come up. Let me try to find the actual link. This is the link to the document that I told you I put out. and
we can
it's a
we can
free
even
download.
also, we'll send an email afterwards. You can include it in it. But
Okay.
it's good if you can put the link right now, because I mean, sometimes this email gets into the promotion folder, if you're using a Gmail, for instance, and some people get
Yeah.
miss out on it. So thank you very much, everybody.
I just put it up.
Yeah, thank you very much, everybody. We're sure that you've gotten value from today's session. And yeah, we just be putting out, to be having another session sometime before the end of the month. And this time around, we are trying to think about how can you think agile when considering the brand of your organization. So yeah, so look out. I push out these things on my LinkedIn, on my LinkedIn page. So on my LinkedIn account, sorry. So if you can follow me on LinkedIn, my name is Dario Dwale. I'm the only person bearing that name in the whole wide world, because my last name is very unique. So yeah, maybe there's a cousin bearing Dari, but not on LinkedIn yet. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining the session. Really appreciate you. Let's connect on LinkedIn. Reach out to Tobe on LinkedIn as well. Some of you might have questions out after today. You might be able to engage via a chat on LinkedIn to say, oh, I'm trying this. What do you think? Or I have this multiple certifications I want to do. What do you think? So I'm sure as much as myself, Tobe is also happy to engage with you on LinkedIn to reply your questions and build relationships from there as well too. So thank you very much, everybody. That's it. And enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks again.
All right.
Bye. Bye.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.